It's Monday of Holy Week, and we're in Mark chapter 11 if you want to follow along. But Jesus is with his disciples. He's heading from Bethany to Jerusalem, and he comes to a fig tree. And this is one of those challenging passages. But there's a sandwich effect where Jesus talks about the fig tree. Then he talks about Jerusalem and the judgment in the temple there. And then again comes back to the fig tree. So there's this sandwich effect. So Mark 11, if you have your Bibles, turn there with me, and beginning in verse 12, we read this. It says, "The next day, as they were leaving Bethany, Jesus was hungry. Seeing in the distance a fig tree and leaf, he went to find out if it had any fruit. And when he reached it, he found nothing but leaves, because it was not the season for figs." And so as Jesus is walking along, you might say he was hangry. No, he was hungry. It was in the morning, and he went to the tree to grab of the fruit, the figs that were to be there, and there were none. Now, I don't know if you've ever picked strawberries. In northern Michigan, we pick strawberries, and this passage reminded me of that, of the time in the summer when we were there. There was all these great green leaves on the plants there, but there were no strawberries. It was so frustrating. There were no fruit there. They should have been there. It was early May. There's plenty of time to be there, and yet there weren't any fruit on the plants there. And so here Jesus is not finding any fruit on this fig tree. So why does he curse the fig tree? He goes on, look at in verse 14. "Then he said to the tree, 'May no one ever eat fruit from you again.' And his disciples heard him say it." And then moving right along quickly, Mark's gospel goes on to talk about reaching Jerusalem and how Jesus went to the temple. And so he curses the fig tree and then casts judgment upon those that were in the temple. Listen to Jesus' harsh words in verse 17. It says, "And then as he taught them, he said, 'Is it not written, my house will be called a house of prayer for all nations, but you have made it a den of robbers?'" See, the money changers, instead of making it about purchasing the animals for sacrifice, they had ultimately made it about ripping people off, taking advantage of those that had traveled and had come to purchase the sacrifices. And so Jesus here is judging those that were in the temple. And so these two things go together, because Israel has not, at this point, wasn't bearing fruit unto God. Therefore, there is judgment. And there was that reminder of the judgment that was coming. And so the fruitless fig tree draws us back to those prior points, even in Jesus' ministry, when God's people were called to produce spiritual fruit. And so, friends, that reminds us today, this Monday of Holy Week, to take a look at our own lives. Do we just have leaves? Do we just look busy, like in the temple where there's a bustle and it looks like there's lots of good going on, and yet the reality is we're not humble in our heart. We're not truly seeking the Lord. Does it look like we have those leaves, but there's no fruit? And so we should look at this sobering passage to remind us not just of judgment, but that God desires for us to draw close in relationship with him, that we would put him at the center of all that's going on. And so may this be a reminder to us that even though there's temptation to just be busy, that we can draw close. Let us be warned that our personal lives can look leafy, but are we humbling ourselves to draw near to him? When we do that, he'll draw near to us. And so may we humble ourselves today, asking God today and every day to draw us close to him, so that we're not just leafy, but that we would be fruitful in our relationship with him, reading his word and living that truth out daily. And so that judgment that we see here in Mark's gospel during this Monday of Holy Week reminds us that's what God offers to us, that there is joy in him, in living for him, so that we wouldn't just be leafy, but that we would bear fruit.